Kundalini is a Sanskrit word meaning either coiled up or coiling like a snake, and the term usually emphasizes a more serpent nature, such as serpent power or serpent energy. The caduceus symbol of coiling snakes is thought to be an ancient symbolic representation of Kundalini physiology, as well as the symbol for the coiled DNA strand, both of which we'll get to in a minute. The concept of Kundalini comes from the yogic philosophy of ancient India. The source text for the concept of Kundalini is the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, written by Swami Svatmarama somewhere between the 12th and 15th centuries. Within a Western frame of understanding, it is often associated with the practice of contemplative or religious practices that might induce an altered state of consciousness, either brought about spontaneously, through a type of yoga, through psychedelic drugs, or through a near-death experience, and is also referenced with encounters with beings from other worlds and dimensions. The Kundalini phenomena is also associated with out-of-body experiences. The Ouroboros is an ancient alchemy symbol depicting a snake or dragon swallowing its own tail, constantly creating itself and forming a circle. It is the wheel of time, the alchemy wheel that manifests grid programs that give the illusion of linear time, allowing souls to experience emotions. The Ouroboros is also associated with Gnosticism and Hermeticism. It represents the cyclical nature of things, eternal return, and other things perceived as cycles that begin anew as soon as they end. In some representations, the serpent is shown as half light and half dark, echoing such symbols as the yin-yang, which illustrates the dual nature of all things, but more importantly, that these opposites are not in conflict. The serpent, or dragon eating its own tail, has survived from antiquity and can be traced back to ancient Egypt, circa 1600 BC. From there, it passed to Phoenicia, and then to the Greek philosophers, who gave it the name Ouroboros, or the tail devourer. In Norse mythology, the serpent Jormungandr, mentioned earlier, grew so large that it could encircle the world and grasp its tail in its teeth. In Hindu mythology, it is the dragon encircling the great tortoise which supports the 4 elephants that carries the world. The Ouroboros has several meanings interwoven into it. Foremost is the symbolism of the serpent biting and devouring its own tail. This symbolizes creation out of destruction, life out of death. The Ouroboros eats its own tail to sustain its own life, in an eternal cycle of renewal. Alchemically, the Ouroboros is also used as a purifying glyph. Ouroboros was and is the name for the great world serpent encircling the earth. The caduceus is a winged staff with 2 snakes wrapped around it. It was an ancient astrological symbol of commerce and is associated with the Greek god Hermes, the messenger for the gods, conductor of the dead, and protector of merchants and thieves. Hermes was also known in ancient Egyptian lore as Thoth, the author of the Emerald Tablet and the figurehead for alchemy. In some cases, depictions of the Greek Kyriakian can be radically different from that of the traditional caduceus. These representations will feature the 2 snakes atop the wand, crossed to create a circle with the heads of the snakes resembling horns. In this form, it looks remarkably similar to the symbol for the planet Mercury, while Mercury is the Roman name for Hermes, who carries the caduceus. In the 7th century, the caduceus came to be associated with the precursor of medicine, based on the Hermetic astrological principles of using the planets and stars to heal the sick. As the symbol for medicine, the caduceus is often used interchangeably with a rod of Asclepius, a single snake crossing a rod with no wings. This symbol of the one snake eventually evolved into the $sign. Some medical organizations join the serpents of the caduceus with rungs to suggest a DNA double helix. Dragons and snakes in the form of the caduceus and others are symbols for human DNA. Fire representing soul sparks of light emanating from the flame of creation. Dragons are winged beings portrayed in the ancient mythologies of most cultures. They link with winged gods from the heavens who came to earth to create the human race and are very important symbology in the creational blueprint of our reality. The symbol's origins are thought to date to as early as 2600 BC in Mesopotamia, started by the Anunnaki creation myths, and there are also several references to caduceus-like symbol in the Bible, namely in the Book of Numbers and Kings. Artifacts depicting a rod with 2 intertwined snakes winding around a central axis came from Mesopotamia in 2200 BC, and a similar image from Crete in 700 BC was also discovered. Reptilian symbolism is so rampant throughout history that its influence has now slithered its way into modern society. Over the ages, reptilian symbols started appearing across the globe, from architecture to art and sculptures, to certain terms as previously mentioned. And most astonishingly, it has crept into a lot of corporate logos, perhaps indicating something more sinister.
Jesus.